District Governor Mazen Ahmed Al-Amran, Your Excellencies, Rotary International President's Representative, Director Peter Kyle, past District Governors, Club Presidents, Conference Delegates, fellow Rotarians, protocol observed. Good evening and welcome back to the 8th Rotary International District 2452 Conference. Our program for this evening is as follows. The 5th plenary session will be Economic and Community Development. The 6th plenary session will be Peace and Conflict Resolution. Our 7th plenary session will be Economic and Community Development again. Now let's start our 5th plenary session, that is Economy and Community Development. Our first speaker is His Excellency Zayed Alzayani, Minister of Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Tourism in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, District Governor, I'm glad to be here with you today to join in the Rotary District 2452 8th Conference in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And it's my pleasure to join you today to talk more about the economy and the community development. Under my portfolio, the ministry manages 3 sectors: commerce, industry, and tourism. And within each sector, we started our vision in the ministry, which is part of the 2030 vision of the Kingdom of Bahrain, to develop each sector in an integral way with the community that works in the center. Of course, each sector has its own challenges, its own objectives, but the underlying factor there amongst all 3 is that we strive for more job creation and more prosperity for the people and the residents of Bahrain. This, of course, falls in line with Vision 2030, launched by His Majesty in 2008. And it is a vision that has clearly mentioned what Bahrain aims to do since 2008, leading up to 2030. And it has been the map for all development carried out in Bahrain since then. So when we started looking at commerce, industry, and tourism, we started dissecting each sector to see how we can complement the vision of 2030. And of course, I have to mention all this in a context of prior to COVID-19. COVID-19, of course, has put a new dimension into our planning, execution, and I will touch upon that a bit later in my introduction. But prior to COVID-19, when we look at each sector, we started looking at them in a deep dive, and I'll kind of speak about each one of them individually. If we start with industry, we worked with our colleagues at the EDB to define what kind of industry we want in Bahrain and what kind of industry we can afford to have in Bahrain. We're a country that doesn't enjoy huge land space or abundant natural resources. So we had to be quite selective in what kind of industry we wanted to have in Bahrain and what was the objective of industry. Of course, one main objective was to diversify our economy, and I think we have done that, not just recently, but since the inception of ALBA in the mid-60s, and we were one of the leaders in the region to divest or to diversify from the oil and energy sector. Starting ALBA in the 1960s has led to a thriving downstream industry in aluminum in Bahrain today, and it is considered one of the largest employers in not only in the industrial sector but throughout Bahrain. And we believe that there is 12,000 jobs directly impacted through the aluminum sector in Bahrain. So we started looking at industry that was clean, energy efficient, creates jobs, and contributes to export value. Because one of the things we wanted to use industry for was also to expand the exports of Bahrain to the world. And that led us, at the end of the day, to focus on certain sectors like pharmaceuticals, food industry, and jointly with the EDB, we started developing and promoting these sectors. We also considered logistics there, and we considered logistics as an industry more than logistics on its own merit, because it is complementary to industry, and Bahrain enjoys good fundamentals for that through land, sea, and air connectivity. When we looked at commerce, commerce was a completely different initiative. There, Bahrain has been a commercial hub for many years. We looked at ways of not how to introduce commerce, but how to make it easier to do business in Bahrain. And we did so with one approach to make it easier for people already established in Bahrain and Bahrainis or residents of Bahrain, plus how to attract people from abroad. The idea was always to make Bahrain an international hub, to make it attractive for people to come from abroad and set up and invest in Bahrain, because we believe once they are here, they will create opportunity, they will create jobs, and they will expand our economy. So we started, again, our deep dive. First, we started with our ministry, and we looked internally what were the things we could do to make it easier to set up a business in Bahrain, to make it easier to transact. And we went through a full reform starting in 2015, looking at all our laws, legislations, practices, internal, whether they were internal or whether they were governed by law. And we went through a major overhaul. We complemented that by introducing Sijillat, our online registration portal. So we complemented moving the legislative part with the technology, and we moved today to 100% paperless operation. You can register your company, you can do it on the internet 24/7 from anywhere in the world. And we accompanied that as well by relaxation of our commercial laws, opening up activities to non-Bahrainis, and today we are one of the most liberal in the region. When we look at tourism, tourism was a completely different ballgame, because at the beginning it was not a sector that was contributing much to our economy. It was not a sector that was focused on, and the government decided in 2015 to give it more emphasis and importance in the diversification of our economy. And hence, people ask, what has tourism got to do with commerce and industry being in one ministry? The approach was to treat tourism as a sector, as an industry. So this is why we added it, or the government chose to add it to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. We started with a tourism strategy, which was not there before. We launched it in 2015, and we had a clear aim to emphasize more on tourism, again, because it promotes Bahrain, it creates job opportunity, brings in investment. So it ticks a lot of the boxes we wanted to do, which complement economy with community development. We were successful up to COVID in doubling the tourism contribution to the GDP. We started with about 3.6%, and we ended 2019 at about 7% of the GDP. Of course, we don't stop there. We aim to be in a double digit of our GDP, and keep in mind, throughout these years, the GDP has been increasing. So our contribution, as well as our absolute value of GDP, has gone up throughout these years. Then COVID arrived, and that was a big mess for everybody. It took us all by surprise, took the whole world by surprise. So we had to change our thinking. We have to change our mindset, and we had to think of how to preserve what we have for a short period, how to stabilize the ship. The challenge in the beginning was not knowing, and still is, when is the end of this pandemic, or how long it's going to take, or how long it's going to cost to sail through. So we had to be very prudent and very quick in our decision making, especially in the beginning. And that's where we chose to, first of all, look at the health issues, stabilize that. We started very early, and I think that's been a blessing through the leadership of His Highness, the Crown Prince, the Prime Minister, We started in January of 2020, and we had a full team working under his leadership and his command, with regular meetings twice a week, and those formal meetings started 3 weeks before the first case was even identified in Bahrain. I think that early start gave us the opportunity to think calmly, not to react, to be proactive, and it gave us time to set up a good medical team with adequately funded and equipped in terms of equipment, medication, staff, that we started our economic recovery towards the end of March last year, very early in the pandemic. That has given us a chance to strike a balance between health and economy, and slowly transition into supporting the economy once the health issues were settled. This, of course, I won't go into much detail into it, but we established a big stimulus package at the very beginning of the pandemic, about 33% of our, equivalent to 33% of our GDP. And again, the underlying factor there was to minimize job loss. We didn't want to make this problem from a health to an economical to a social issue. So we managed to do that. We stabilized the market. We managed to reduce as much as possible job loss. And thankfully, Q1 of 2021 has shown a growth compared to 2020 Q1, keeping in mind that a month and a half at least of 2020 were kind of normal business circumstances. So that's a very good sign for us. And we seem to be on the road to recovery economically. One last thing I want to touch upon. It is the emphasis Bahrain has given lately to the SME sector. We believe, and this has a lot of community ties, that the SMEs are the future of Bahrain. This is why His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has set up the SME Development Board in 2018. And we were entrusted, and he has honored me to chair that board, to develop a 5-year national strategy to develop SMEs. Prior to that, there was no direct focus or concentration on the SME sector, and a lot of them were being frustrated and felt neglected. Since then, we launched the policy, the strategy. We have 3 main KPIs and 22 initiatives to support achieving these KPIs. And I have to say that despite COVID coming halfway in the strategy, but we are so far 70% achieved of what we set out to achieve. And we are experiencing growth in the SME sector and a clear path for people starting companies in this sector to develop their businesses further. We feel that is the future. We have a predominantly young population in Bahrain. It's where we see jobs being created, where we see mindsets of citizens and residents of Bahrain changing from job seekers to job providers, and where we see the future in developing and diversifying our economy. I'd like to stop here. Again, I'm very honored to be here with you today. I will leave as much time as we can of the session for interaction with the audience. And thank you for considering to have your conference in Bahrain. We wish you a pleasant stay here. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for such an edifying speech. We will keep the comments and questions until the end of the session. Our next speaker is Mr. Khalid Humaidan, Chief Executive of the Bahrain Economic Development Board. Mr. Khalid, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Very happy to be here with you today, and I would like to thank the organizers. The Rotary Club is a club with a lot of history we have a lot of respect for, and we admire their history and the distinguished members that they have. In the next few minutes, I'd like to present you with the role of the EDB, review the key attractive features of Bahrain, and overview the key focus areas for the EDB. The Economic Development Board is an investment promotion agency. Our role is to attract investors into the country, and we help them throughout the entire investment process: feasibility, registration, aftercare. During the feasibility, many investors will have some questions about the size of the market and about the costs of labor, land, capital, energy, etc. And we can help make sure that they have the information that they need in order to assess the viability of a project in Bahrain. Registration. We have a dedicated team that will help them and make sure that the entire process is smooth. Aftercare is important for two reasons. Firstly, any new entrant into our environment, into our economy, we would like to introduce them to a network of other businesses that can make their business in Bahrain successful. Secondly, any business, if they do face any problems, we will give them a network and access to the decision makers and the officials that can help ease the problem, and we can contemplate finding the right solutions together. In order to assess the opportunities in Bahrain, first of all, we need to get our bearings. Bahrain is a market located in the heart of Middle East and North Africa. Middle East and North Africa represents 4% of the world GDP. The largest economy in Middle East and North Africa is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Luckily, we have a causeway link between us and them. Beyond the GCC and beyond MENA, Bahrain is privileged and lucky to have a free trade agreement with the United States of America. That allows a manufacturing facility in Bahrain to export to close to a third of the world economy with privileged terms. We spend a lot of time speaking to different investors, and they have three things at the top of their mind. They care about money, they care about people, and they care about partners. In terms of money, a business based in Bahrain is more profitable than a business based elsewhere because we have a unique combination of these three factors: 0% corporate tax, 100% foreign ownership, and low operating costs. You put those three combinations together, it's unique to Bahrain, and a business based in Bahrain will be more profitable than a business based elsewhere. In terms of people, you have access to talent from Bahrain. The local workforce is bilingual, it's educated. In addition to that, the government of Bahrain is willing to pay, to shoulder the financial burden, to upskill any Bahraini to the standards that are required. If for whatever reason an investor or a business requires to hire specialized expat talent, that is available in Bahrain, and the expats enjoy a high quality of life in Bahrain. And there's multiple surveys that confirm that expats enjoy being in Bahrain. Put it all together, there's local talent and there is happy, productive expats that are available that could work for your business. In terms of partners, it's very important to note that we are a small country, and a business based in Bahrain will have access to the decision makers that can help make a big difference in their future and their chances of success. Then the next point, I'd like to talk about the diversification of our economy. Diversification of our economy in Bahrain is one of our priorities. And we realized in the year 2002 that it was unsustainable for oil to represent 40% of our GDP. And there was a plan in place with the creation of the Economic Development Board. His Royal Highness made sure the private sector and public sector work together to make sure the economy starts the path of diversification. Less than 2 decades later, oil represents 18% of our economy. Financial services represent 16% of our economy, and the manufacturing sector contributes 14% of our economy. We have been able to successfully diversify. We did that by involving the private sector, by involving investors that come to Bahrain and invest in non-oil sectors. One of the many indicators that gives you a sense of our success is FDI stock to GDP. The rate in Bahrain, the ratio in Bahrain is 80%. We are significantly higher than the regional countries, and relative to the world, it's almost double. It's one of the indications that we were able to attract the confidence and maintain the confidence of the investors, and with that, we end up with a diversified economy. And we would like to continue down that path. Diversification is very important to us. And this is why the EDB, we have a multi-sectorial approach, and we pursue investment opportunities in different sectors. Financial services, a very important sector, and we know that the future diversification, digitization in the banking space is going to be key for our continued success in that sector. We have banks, we have non-banks, we have local banks, we have regional banks, and we have international banks. Bahrain wants to play a role in the digitization of banking. Manufacturing and logistics. We know that companies like Mondelez in Bahrain make sense for them. They are profitable and they're expanding in Bahrain because that type of industry can work very, very well from Bahrain. The logistics network that we have, our ability to connect to the other markets is key. And e-commerce is part of our future. We know that, and we want to make sure that we attract companies that are able to contribute towards that transformation. ICT, cloud, and data centers play a key role in the development of that sector for us. We have the largest American player with a data center in Bahrain. We have a very large Chinese who have the intention of building a data center in Bahrain. We have a local telecom that's building a data center in Bahrain. And we have a regional telecom with the intention of building a data center in Bahrain. That's the beginning of us being able to build a cluster around data centers and cloud computing. Another two very important sectors is education and healthcare. With COVID, we know and value the importance of those two sectors, and they're key to our development. Vocational training will play a role, and all the different types of healthcare and prevention will play a role in the development of those two fields. Last but definitely not least, tourism. Tourism. Before COVID, we were lucky that we were able to attract 11 million tourists to Bahrain. And we have a plan to continue to develop our waterfront so we're able not only to regain the 11 million tourists that we used to have, but we have plans to continue to develop that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Khalid, for your informative speech. Again, we will keep the comments and questions until the end of the session. Our next speaker is Past District Governor Farid Gibran from Lebanon. Past District Governor Farid, the floor is yours.
District Governor Mazen Al-Omran, District 2452. Protocol observed, fellow Rotarian participant in this district conference. I would like first to thank District Governor and the organizing committee who spared no efforts to make this conference happen despite the difficult time of COVID-19 pandemic. We sincerely appreciate your tremendous support and help. Thank you. And hopefully we will physically meet very soon and be in a better position once the pandemic comes to an end. To talk about economy, community and economic development, it is a very important subject that during this difficult time, all around the world are facing many challenges. First, the community is considered the third pillar of the economic system in addition to the market and the state. The market is an organization coordinating competition among people seeking profit by impersonal means of prices. And the state intervene in matters of resource allocation. In contrast, the community organized collective actions based on mutual trust within a small group characterized by intensive interactions. The community role in conserving and improving common property resources is well known. In addition, its role in supporting market development by its power to reinforce trade contract among parties belonging to the community network is emphasized. This role is especially important in the early development stage. Community economic development encourages using local resources in a way that enhance economic opportunities while improving social conditions and increase opportunities for communities who are disadvantaged. As an aspect of localizing economics is a community-centered process that blends social and economic development to foster the economic, social, ecological, and cultural well-being of the community. Community economic development is an alternative to conventional economic development. Its central tenet is that problems facing communities, unemployment, poverty, job loss, environmental degradation, and loss of community control need to be addressed in a holistic and participatory way. The community economic development purpose is to revitalize communities, develop and rehabilitate affordable housing, promote sustainability, attract investment, build wealth, encourage entrepreneurship, and create jobs. It identifies, disseminate, and implement successful best practices for community action agencies and related organizations. Also, it provides strategies by which local development organizations initiate and generate their own solution to their community economic problem and build long-term community capacity and foster the integration of economic, social, and environmental objectives. Public programs may be used and corporate support attracted, but organizations representing the interest of the local community launch and direct the initiative. So where we are as Rotary organization and Rotary Foundation in this development economic world. Rotarians around the world are involved in economic development. Some of the ways they engage their communities are by building the capacity of entrepreneurs, community leaders, local organizations, and community networks to support economic development in the community. Second, developing opportunities for productive work. Third, reducing poverty in undeserved communities. And fourth, supporting studies for career-minded professionals related to economic and community development so that they can further expand the work conducted by Rotary. There are many ways to carry out a project that will impact the economic development of our community, including first, initiating income generation activities to encourage greater self-sufficiency within the local economy. Second, increasing access to market or helping business owners market their goods. Third, alleviating poverty. We can also provide the scholarship for academic programs that help economic development professionals enhance their skills. As well, supply vocational training or entrepreneurial training. Help develop the leadership skills that community members need to work together for the improvement of the community. We understand that each service project is unique. Some are large in scale, some are small. Some use Rotary grants to help fund them, and other projects are funded by club or district. However, there is one thing all successful service projects have in common: a life cycle. This graphic shows the life cycle of a service project. As you can see, the key areas are planning, acquiring resources, project implementation, evaluation, and promotion. Determining our community needs and resources is an important starting point for any community project. Community assessment identifies the community's strengths and weaknesses and how Rotarians will be able to work with the community to meet its needs. It is vital to conduct a community assessment, often in conjunction with a cooperating organization, before starting the project. We remember to consider the historical, cultural, and social dynamics of the community with which we as Rotary organization wish to partner. In the planning and searching resources, we can go through different ways. First, it's advisable to form focus group of community stakeholders to identify their strengths and needs. Second, we should allow community members to identify the needs they perceive as most critical. We should host a community meeting to discuss identified strengths and challenges and have open discussion about how community members can help address local needs, and we collaborate with community members to identify long-term goals and anticipated project outcomes. To talk also with government and official administration to explore partnership and opportunities, and to identify existing organizations who may be project partners. And Rotary encourage us to look at local partners and to participate together in the planning, in the implementation, and in the execution of any community project. So it is advisable also to go to two ways for the implementation of the project. First, to form Rotarian Action Group. Rotarian Action Group leverage their expertise in their particular area of interest to support the clubs and district in their project. The Rotarian Action Group for microcredit by example and community development guides members in planning and funding the economic development activities. It too hosts microcredit conferences and help to advance the field of microcredit and community development worldwide. And for the microfinance, also it should be through a financial institution and not through direct implementation by club or district. The second way is the Rotary Community Corps. Rotary Community Corps is a team of non-Rotarians who are flexible partners of service for Rotary Club. Rotary Community Corps offer community solution for community issues and can offer key insight of the local community and economic market. And we advise that a good experience by both Rotary Action Group and Rotary Community Corps facilitate the implementation of a community economic development project. So, as I said before, the funding of any community development project, economic development project, could be through global grant or direct by clubs or district. For an overview about the eligibility of the global grant, any project, we have to look about the sustainability of the project, should be measurable goals, align with an area of focus as described by the Rotary Foundation, respond to real community needs based on the assessment that I said before, and actively involve Rotarians and host community members. The global grant scope for economic and community development could be a scholarship supporting graduate level studies in different fields, community development as training related to community leadership, or vocational training, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, as well as small business, development of a small business, cooperative, social enterprise, or for microcredit, access to financial service, including microcredit saving insurance, and this must be in partnership with a microfinance institution, or for agriculture, development for subsistence and the small farmers. So it is, and now they give in the Rotary Foundation most importance for this kind of scope for economic and community development. Let us give you an overview about all, or give you some example what Rotary and Rotary Foundation around the world, district or clubs did during the past year. This is a small example. In Philippines, disease prevention and economic development, fighting the pandemic through nourishment and protection. In Thailand, project of economic development to teach the community how to grow kitchen vegetable in order to create income to support family. In India, project saving machine. In Costa Rica, economical development through permaculture 1 hectare will become a permaculture farm providing food security to rural areas. In Nigeria, mentorship of youth. In Bangladesh, free fertilizer distribution among poor farmers. In Nepal, COVID-19 isolation material donation program. In Togo, training and financing in fish farming and related activities. In Egypt, Siwa salt land water assessment. And in Cyprus, peace building, economic development, and education. For your information, the development resources that we can look at it in Rotary, Community in Action, a guide to effective project, community assessment tools, introduction to vocational service, Rotarian Action Group for Microfinance, and community development. They are a good resources to plan and implement any community development project. Thank you.
Thank you, Past District Governor Farid, for your wonderful speech. Now we will start the Q&A with Past District Governor Nejad Al-Atasi.